Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast out of the 2025 NRL Supercoach season, proudly brought to you by Mortgage Choice SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams, and we're on the cusp of the first rugby league for the 2025 season. 2 pre-season trial games coming up this weekend. It's exciting times ahead. Here to talk through it with me, as always, 2019 NRL Supercoach champion, Dez Creek. Desi, how are you, mate?
Good, Timmy, good. Yeah, finally came to see some rugby league on my screen. As much as I like cricket, getting a bit sick of it. Definitely want footy back.
And mate, you're repping your Lakers jersey today. What's the inspiration?
I am the $10 special from Canggu. The inspiration, I think we all know, is Luka Doncic.
Bloody hell.
We got him.
You going to win it?
Probably not.
Also with us today, Maxy Bryden. Maxy is a proud new owner of Brendan Hands. Maxy, tell us why you've decided to throw in the towel before the season started.
Yeah, look, it's a fair sledge, and look, I'm just ready to get hurt again, right? I mean, you sit there and you look at all the hookers and the 5'8s this year, and they look pretty rubbish. And look, believe me, we will help all the viewers out there try and sort out this mess before the season starts. But yeah, why not Brendan Hands? Why can't he be the Harry Grant of 2025?
We go back to 2024. More on him later on. And also with us, Matty, the Waterboy. Matty, who is battling a bit. The bunnies, they're dropping like flies. Campbell Graham, gone. How you feeling, mate?
Oh, look, it's just the same as how I've been feeling for the last 18 months. It's almost coming towards 24 months now. It's just a never-ending roller coaster, except there's no ups. It's just completely down. So, yeah, I think he'll be fine. He's only broken his hand. NRL physio said 3 or 4 weeks. I listened to him like it's gospel, so he'll be sweet.
Yeah, we'll see about that, mate. Everything was coming together for the Bunnies for big 2025, and now they're just a few injuries creeping in, so we'll see how that one goes. Boys, on today's show, a few topics to kick things off. The undervalued players to begin the season. Based on the ones who played limited games last season, they've had price reductions. Jay Schubert's done a cracking article on that on our website for more details. We're going to touch on the main players from there. We're also going to look at boost, boys, the strategy around that. We've had a few years to look at boosts and the best ways to do them, especially with the new bye period and origin period set up. So how we're going to attack that. And our team previews will continue looking at the Knights, the Eels, the Warriors, and the almighty Canberra Raiders. Guys, jump in our SC Playbook Unlimited League. The code for that one is 434727. $1,000 in cold hard cash up for grabs to the winner of that one. And of course, the SC Playbook subscription package, guys. Less than $2 a week, a third of your daily coffee. Quarter of your daily coffee, depends where you're buying it. They're getting pretty expensive these days, Maxy. But to do so, you can subscribe to our premium content, extra articles on site each and every week, access to our WhatsApp community, the prize money, and our brand new exclusive subscriber-only podcast starting. It'll either be this week or next, so keen to get stuck into that one as well. To do so, head to the menu at scplaybook.com.au and hit subscribe. Boys, let's start off with the first topic, and that is the undervalued players in 2025. So the way it works is that players that play, I think it's less than 8 games in a season, they get a reduction. So most players who play 8+ games are priced on their average from the year prior. But people, whether it's due to injury or not getting selected, whatever it might be, they change their price. And Jay Schubert's has done a really good write-up, as I said, on this, on the website. So he's gone through basically every player who is in this boat. I've picked a select few to talk about. The first one is Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, who, despite only playing 2 games last year, he's actually been given technically a price increase on his starting price because he averaged 47 points per game or something, and because it was such a big price reduction of 260k, he's actually gone up a little bit. Probably don't need to touch on him too much, but the first one we will is Corey Horsburgh. Canberra Raiders, priced on a 45-point average last season. He averaged 45 points per game last season. He's priced on a 36-point per game average. He played just 5 games. Desi, I'll start with you. The Red Dog, dual front row forward, second row forward. Is he someone you're interested in?
I think so. I think with the dual, it wins me over. We've seen him in years gone by where he's played, close to 60, 70 minutes even, sometimes 80, where he can just go a point a minute. He's just a tackle machine. An easy average 70 this season if he gets the minutes, so I think he's well underpriced and will be in my team. Yeah,
and he obviously has as well a bit of upside for front row as well. A great offload on him, which is vital when you look at front row forwards in Supercoach. Minutes will be the big watch. Obviously, Maxy with Red may start, probably comes off the bench. may not matter too much, but if you can get that sort of 45 to 50 minute role and hopefully the rest, does look enticing to me. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I think just the one thing as well I'd just like to mention on value is, you're talking in almost 9 points down from last year's average. That's roughly equates to around 90K as well. So when we talk about value and making money throughout the season, finding those guys with like a 10-point reduction, then you can almost sort of bank on them as being pretty good guys who can make you 100 grand, which is fantastic for your starting players. But yeah, look, the big red dog, I owned him a couple of years ago in draft comps, and he was fantastic as a guy who you could play in your front row, who was getting really good scores and good minutes. So yeah, he's in my team, and he's probably going to be my front row for number 2.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think if you can get the minutes, he's very playable, and to plug in that front row as a player in the opening rounds of the season until we can upgrade to a second gun front row, depending on how you're attacking that position. But, I mean, you look back to 2023, he averaged 62 minutes per game for 62 points per game. Last year, he averaged just 44 minutes per game. So it's not as if he's coming out and played 30 minutes and there's a massive increase, but if you can get... Honestly, if you can get 45 to sort of 50 minutes at his starting price with that reduction, starts offloading a little bit, I think he's a very solid plug at least to start the season and potentially for a bit longer moving forward. The second one, boys, one dear to your heart, Maxy, is Jarrell Skelton. 64 point per game average last year from his 4 games. He's priced on a 51 point average, Desi. Likely to start on the wing for the Tigers. There's a few different ways they could go about it, and we'll get to them with the next player as well. But Jarrell Skelton looks made for Supercoach. He's a tackle buster, decent work rate, big barnstorming finisher. Is he on your radar at all?
I think, yeah, you'd be crazy not to be on your radar. He's a big body, big frame. Like you said, he tackle busts. He's got a bit of Kiraz about him, realistically. So I think if he can score some tries, if the Tigers can string something together, then yeah, I think he's probably well underpriced, and people will be flocking to bring him in the opening month of the season if he can jag even just 1 or 2.
Maxy, I believe you're a current owner.
Current owner, been there since day one. That's just not out of Mad Tigers' respect for him. I think he's a great player. I think the thing about Skelton as well that not a lot of people realise is that his background hasn't been in rugby league. He came across from rugby sevens only a few years ago. So he's still learning the game. If you ever watched him play in New South Wales Cup as well, some of those performances were absolutely breathtakingly brutal. He's got a game built for Supercoach, so I'm really excited to own, and I think he can easily add 10 points onto what he's priced at the moment at 51.
I'm not interested in him at the moment, and sorry to stick a knife into your optimism, Maxy, but it's because he plays for the Tigers. I want as much as anyone that's not a West Tigers fan to see them come good this year, and I'd love to see them make a run to the 8 and have a big year. But the fact is they've won 3 wooden spoons in a row. Doueihi comes in, they've got some new faces, they look good, Jarrell being one of them. I'm not convinced, and I need to see it before I invest in any attacking plays in their side. I think the other one will be, we'll see which wing he lobs on, but I don't like him on the wing outside of Doueihi. Loves to cut back in field. I don't like wingers outside him. Maybe running the show for the Tigers, it's a different story and things do change, but I don't really want a winger or even a centre for that matter on Doueihi's side of the field. It could be different at the Tigers, but if I was going to go for an outside back, it'd probably be ideally on Lockie Galvin's side of the field. Again, another big ball running 5'8". So not on my radar, barring just a massive preseason performance from both the Tigers and Skelton.
Can I just retort that one though, Timmy?
Sure.
So I think that what we saw in terms of the Tigers structurally, and look, we're guessing at the moment, we'll know in 2 weeks when we see trials. I have a strong suspicion that we are going to see Lachlan Galvin lob on the right, and Will Skelton's played his entire career on the wing on the right as well. And Taruva's played both sides, who I'm suspecting is going to be the other winger. So I think he will be on Galvin's side. But regardless, for a guy who does most of his scoring not in tries but in base and power, I think he can easily have a base and power average close to his price. So if he's scoring tries on top of that, it's just a bonus. And particularly early doors while we're playing roulette with a couple of these cheapy CTWs, I love guys who have base. He is very similarly priced to Greg Marzhew, but I think he's going to be on the right side of the field.
That's very beneficial for all those reasons just mentioned. I'm still not keen, but it's a lot more appealing than outside Doueihi. Staying on the Tigers and their wingers, I think this is possibly speculative, and it's a bit more of my probably eye test than what I expect may have, but Luke Lilly, I think he's a real talent for you, Maxy, and he may or may not start round 1. I've sort of spoken to a few Tigers supporters, and I'm keen to get your thoughts. Well, you've already mentioned that you've said sort of that Taruva probably starts on the wing, I'm guessing. There were initial talk that he'd signed at the Tigers to play in the centres. And I'm sort of sitting there going, Lau Lilly, despite only a small sample size, he's looked terrific to me. Could he win a wing spot with Skelton on the other wing? Taruva does, in fact, play centre. Adam Doueihi will be the other centre, and Justin Olam drops out. Like, what are your feelings around that?
I think that Olam has still got plenty to offer. And when he has been fit in the last year for the Tigers, he's had some really good moments and been sort of one of our best players just because he's a pretty solid hole runner. And he does break tackles and he does support his half really well. So I think that, pending just how bad his knee injury is, and you've got to remember, like, he did miss a lot of football last year, not just through suspension, but through injury, that he would be first choice. But I do like now Lilly, and I guess the thing is that any guy who's guaranteed 80 minutes, if he's playing on a wing, who's under 300k, you've got to assess as a talent. And I do think that he could do better than that 30 point per game because we saw that he was pretty active, he ran hard, he tries to bust tackles even though he's pretty small. So he's a pretty likely character. So if he does jag that spot, then yeah, a lot of people will flock to him.
Yeah, and if he does end up outside Jerome Luai and it does end up being sort of on the left, whatever it might be, you're still going to have some concerns. But we're looking at a bloke priced on a 30 point per game averaged. He averaged 38 last year, and there was not a lot of attack to come with that, but just looks good to me. So 297k from his 5 games. So just one, probably more of a pre-season watch. If you can nab that spot, we'll have a bit of a look at him. Onto the 5'8", which is a big one for this position, and a position where I'm sort of battling to sort of land on anyone. I'm pretty keen on the bloke at the top of this list, and it is Luke Metcalf, who in 2024, he averaged 50 points per game. He's priced on a 45-point average. I'm going to talk about him in the Warriors preview, but there's some really good numbers around him, when you take out injury-affected games, potential goal kicking, etc. But the other one, she's a real unintentionally a Tigers theme here, Adam Doueihi. So in 2024, he averaged 49 points per game across his 7 games. He's priced on a 44-point average at 431k, dual CT dub 5'8". A bloke who's been a Supercoach star in the past, more so playing in the halves, Desi, but Adam Doueihi, there'll be some decent base there, probably goal kicks, I'd imagine. What are your thoughts, Des?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been a fan of his game. He's a big, strong guy, can score tries. So we'll have to see how he combines with the halves there and whether he can get over some meat pies early. 431k for Doueihi seems cheap to me. But yeah, I don't think he probably has the score ceiling that he used to a few years ago, and a few injuries probably taken it out of him. So I wouldn't expect huge things. I don't think he's going to average 60 to 70 sort of thing, but he'll probably make some money early doors for you.
And we're thinking he goal kicks over Appy, Maxy?
It's line ball call. I mean, Appy's kicking as unconventional as it may seem. He never seems to really hit him for the sideline unless the game's on the line. His percentage last year was pretty good. I think it was over 70%, which is serviceable. But Doueihi, I think, is better. It's just it's going to come down to coach's call. There's been a lot of chat this year even just about the Eels, and I think that Guru's justification, which has been recirculated by a lot of people, is that they want Moses back in the huddle after they score tries because he's the leader and they want him talking to the team, not talking to the kicking tee. And that could be the case with Appy as the captain on field. They might want him back there, particularly because Doueihi's pretty good off the tee. So if he gets kicking, then 100% there's value there for him at 430k. So
I don't mind him. Not currently in my team, but another one. He's had so many injuries, the poor bugger. I want to see what the Tigers look like in the preseason, what his role looks like, how much ball he's getting, etc., edges, all sorts of things. But just one for the radar. And the last one to touch on, currently not in my predicted team for the Knights, but with a big preseason, Will Price. The halves there are just all over the shop. They have that many options, but it doesn't there's talk that Fletcher Sharp might start at 5'8", Tyson Gamble at halfback. I don't like that for the Knights, but Will Price, he's priced on a 40-point average last year from 5 games. He's priced on a 32 average. He did average 40 last year. Had an absolute barrier with that one. If he can nab a starting spot for the Knights at 310k, I think he looks an absolute steal. Desi, attacking upside to him, scored well last year when playing in big minute games. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the prices here. They truly are. The topic is undervalued players. They truly are undervalued. So I could almost see myself starting with every single one of the players on this list. But yeah, Price looks like a player. He looks solid enough. There could be a ceiling there. that we haven't really explored yet. There's some untapped potential to him for sure.
Yeah, in the 3 starting games he had last season, he averaged 60 points per game with 37 in base, which is terrific. And the other thing about him, he's question mark at NRL level as a younger sort of bloke and I shouldn't say a smaller body because he's growing into it and he's a big enough boy, but it's just his defence. It does mean he's going to get a lot of traffic and a lot of tackles if he is playing. So, basically, if he gets named in round 1 to start, I don't think he will, but he'd probably be in my team in that backup 5'8" slot. Boys, let's get on to our first preview of the show, and it is around the Newcastle Knights. My predicted 17 for them, Kalen Ponga at 1, the wings, Fletcher Sharp and Greg Marzhew, the centres, Dane Gagai, Bradman and Best, in the halves, Tyson Gamble and Jack Cogger, front row, Jacob Saifidi and Leo Thompson, Jaden Brayley at 9, back row of Dylan Lucas, Tyson Frizzell, Adam Elliott, and then a bench of Phoenix Crossland, Matt Croker, Jack Hetherington, Kai Piss-Paul. The halves could line up like anything in round 1. We don't know. I don't think Adam O'Brien knows. I think the preseason challenge will dictate what it does look like, so watch that space. But at the moment, I just think Fletcher Sharp on the wings offers so much more, and you can have a decent combo of Gamble and Cogger. I don't like Campbell at half, but bit of bias in that one. And then the other watch there is just the back row. I've got Lucas and Frizzell, but Kai Piss-Paul could easily start with either of those two, with the other one pushing into a sort of a middle forward role. Piss-Paul could start on one edge with Tyson Frizzell sort of moving in and playing through the middle. So keep an eye on that. Their draw to start the season. The Tigers away, the Dolphins at home, the Titans away, a bye in round 4, which is a bit awkward. Doggies away, Tigers at home. Their first 5 rounds rating, I've got it about a 6 out of 10. The bye's annoying, but it's a pretty favourable draw against some pretty soft opposition. The Tigers twice in the opening 6 rounds, particularly enticing. Fellas, let's start at Kalen Ponga at $790,000. Opened up last year with scores of 50 and 45. He then went nuts. Across the first 6 rounds, he averaged 84.3 points per game. Then there was an injury, came back later on. He had, excluding his injury game last year, 6 tons and 2 90s in 14 games, a low of only 45. Taking out the injury games in 2023, he played 16 games and had 6 tons and 4 in the 90s. Desi, what are your thoughts on KP?
Yeah, I think $790K. It's a fair starting price for someone who, can get 6 tons in probably 10, 12 games. So I think it's a fair price. It's always a risk that he's going to get concussed or injured. It just seems to happen every single year. You cannot own Kalen Ponga for a full season of football. It's just not possible. I started with him last year. He looked good off the start and then kind of all went to shit. So I'm probably going to avoid him this season. I can't, knock anyone starting with him because he's just a gun, but you will pay for it when he gets injured.
Maxy?
Look, honestly, I reckon Desi said it pretty well. He's the type of guy that when you look at the scores, he's like, I wouldn't call him a flat track bully, but he's certainly a guy that you want when he's got that really favourable draw. Like if he's coming up against teams in the bottom 8, then you know that he's got the skills to absolutely bully them. But he doesn't necessarily have the work rate or even the cattle around him to necessarily have a great score against some of those better teams. So I think you've got to pick your moments with Ponga. He has been in iterations of my team, but at the moment he's just fallen out. I think that bye is sort of like a blessing and a curse. Like it's going to come, I think, maybe just after the first price rise. So you get a good look. And then he goes into a Bulldogs game away, which, they're going to be one of the better defensive teams to start. So yeah, it's a tricky draw, but you can't really knock people from going against him because like when he is fit and firing, he's definitely one of the top 3 players in Supercoach.
Yeah, he's in my team at the moment. I've got my full team reveal up on the website at the moment with analysis on every player in the squad there to SC Playbook subscribers. But I'm sort of between him and Latrell Mitchell, I think, to start the season. I want to watch the preseason. I want to see how the Knights look with a potentially new halves combination and how I'm sure Ponga will be looking good. He missed that Kangaroos tour at the end of last year, made himself unavailable for selection, I should say, to get his body right and to be firing for the Knights. So, look, I'm pretty keen on him. The draw's the big thing. Take out that bye. I love the games that he's got there. So, you mentioned that he is one that, sometimes you've just got to pick and choose the times and the runs. He's also someone who could come out and quite easily average 100 over the first 6 rounds. So I'm pretty keen on Kalen Ponga. He's in about 31% of teams at the moment, so a few people thinking similar. Dane Gagai, look, he's Mr. Reliable. Averaged 71 and 72 the last 2 seasons. 38 base per game last year. 6.5 tackle bust per game. You know what you're going to get from him. Can he get higher than that average-wise? I don't think so, so not on my radar. One that is a little bit enticing, and I know the Spy's big on him, is Dylan Lucas. Of course, this is pending his role. If he is an 8-minute edge-back rower, a few numbers around Dylan Lucas. 11 games starting in the back row last season. He averaged 67.81. Bit of an uptick on his 63-point season average. In those games, though, he averaged 52.9 in base, which is very, very solid. Obviously, dual 2RF CT dub at a 616K starting price. I'm probably not going to do it, Desi, but he's a good try scorer. He runs a good line. What do you think?
You're not going to start with him?
No.
I think you almost have to if he's available at centre wing, and he's averaging 67 in the back row. So I think it really is shades of kind of like Manu Mau, John Bateman sort of player. back when I was good at Supercoach, and you could stick these guys in your centre wing and get away with it. If they're offering it to you on a platter like this, take it. I say take the 67 average in centre wing for 600K. And set and forget him.
What I will say is that I feel there's a lot more room for base stat 2RFs in CT dub early on in the season. There's less point scores. Players don't have the ceiling that they typically do later in the season when sides are a bit depleted and they have players out to Origin and all sorts of stuff where you see some bigger margins, some big like 150 plus Supercoach scores. When you start with an attack-reliant player who you're paying 600-700K for, they need to score them early, and it may not come. Dylan Lucas, he'll get through his work, maybe scores some attacking stats. I don't mind it, but I'm not going to do it. What do you think, Max?
I love him as well. I've tried to get him into my side a few times, but the price is just a little bit more awkward, particularly when you can get a guy who's going to be, 2 spots outside him for 100 grand cheaper in Greg the Leg. But the thing that I wrote down at the end of last year, one of the many things, if you can read the 3,000-word essay I did for the website, was just how good having a 2RF CTW duel is. Yeah. Last year it was Burbo, and even when he was hurt for most of the year and coming off the bench, he helped me out like every week with just finding the right guys at the right time that you could just swing him up and down. So I do really want a duel, and there's not many really good ones out there. It's really him, Burbo, or Jack Bird.
Bo Fermor.
Bo Fermor there, yeah, another one. So I think he's great, and I can't knock anyone from starting him because, he's a set and forget guy for your CTW early doors, which is pretty priceless again when you're playing the roulette. Yeah,
I'm sort of looking at those guys, and you mentioned Greg the Leg, who's sort of 100K cheaper, who I like the upside of. And then I go, all right, if I can spend another 70 to 80K and you can get towards that sort of Ruben Garrick, Jacob Kiraz range, and I'm just seeing the ceiling there, and I feel like I think to Garrick it's another 70 odd K, 70 or 80, so I'm more tempted to do that. Mid-ranges, boys, Bradman best, 58 average in 73 minutes per game last season. Take out the injury game, 63.67 per game with 35 in base. A genuine option, but again, probably want to have a look at the Knights. But Greg Marzhew at 513K, I've said a few times, I don't see how he averages less than that. All the attack at the Knights last year went down the right. If it does the same thing this year and they go right, and Ponga plays all down the right, I see Marzhew averaging the same, 52-point average, if the tries don't come his way in the attack. The year before, I know they went on this incredible run and they were just unstoppable, but he averaged 77 the year prior. I think Bradman best back is massive for him. He only played limited games last season. I just think that Ponga will go left more with Bradman best in the team. Instead of having Dylan Lucas at centre, who's just a hard-running back row when he plays centre, Bradman best attracts defenders, has a tremendous tip on, so I just think it's all good for him. When Bradman best did play last season, Marzhew averaged 58.33 per game as opposed to the 52 that he's priced on. Not heaps more, but it's a bit of an uptick. Desi, he's one of my first picked. I'm keen as on him. What do you think?
I think so. I think I'm going to get both of those Knights centre wing to start just because I'm not starting Kalen Ponga. So I need to offset a bit of the damage there. If he does go on a rampage, you definitely want a couple of Knights there because they're gonna cash in on it as well. So I think, for me, Lucas and Marzhew are both probably almost locked into my centre wing. They're the guys that I'm going to spend up on and fade Ponga.
Fading KP. Maxy, what do you think?
I think you nailed it on the head, but I reckon that average of how Greg goes with Bradman best might even be more dramatic than what you're suggested there. I'm just looking at my notes that I did when we were doing how dudes go with other dudes at the end of last year. And it was almost 20-point difference with Greg in
2024.
In 2024, in games, yeah. And this was probably done prior to the end of the season, so it may have changed a little bit, but I reckon it's pretty dramatic. So, as you said, Greg can't go worse than his price. We started this show talking about value, and as long as Greg has got Bradman inside him, I reckon he presents very good value.
Jeez, what an absolute roast. Just having a crack at me and my stats, mate. I'm just trying to see there. My laptop shat itself early in the week. It was basically brand new, so I'm running off an old boy at the moment. She's not moving fast. So Bradman Best, look, Best did come back and play round 26 and round 27. I don't know if that altered your stats, but you've got me nervous now, Maxy, but I thought they were all good, but we'll double check them as we move forward. Boys, moving on to the Parramatta Eels next up in our squad previews. And at the Eels, I have Iongi at fullback, the rookie recruit from the Panthers. On the wings, Bailey Simonton and Bailey Simonton and Josh Adokar. Will Pensini and Zach Lomax in the centres. Dill Brown and Mitch Moses in the halves. Fox is back round 3 or 4, I think it is. So it'll be Sean Russell and Bailey Simonton early, and then Fox will come back into that team. Joe Offengowie and Junior Paulo in the front row. Jermaine Hopgood at lock. Brendan Hands at hooker. Kelma Tuolangi and Bryce Cartwright on the edges, and then a bench of Joey Lussick, Ryan Madison, Sean Lane, Jack Williams. We don't know what the edges are probably going to look like. They could have Sean Lane there, Ryan Madison, under Jason Riles, team list even in the trials. We'll learn a lot more about that. I'm sort of thinking that Madison and Sean Lane, as they did towards the back end of the year, play through the middle. I think it could be a good year for Kelma Tuolangi. So they're sort of the main ones. Brendan Hands probably starts hooker, but a bit of a watch there. Their draw, they open up with the Storm away. Very tough start. Then they go the Tigers at home, Bulldogs at home, Seagulls away, Dragons at home, Raiders at home, Tigers away. After round 1, it's quite a good draw. There's a few tricky games in Dogs and Manly, but around that, I don't mind it at all. I've got their first 5 rounds at a 6 out of 10 rating. Boys, let's start at the recruit, Zach Lomax. 79-point average last season. At centre in years prior, though, he averaged 62, 60 and 57. I don't think it's sort of dramatic to say that he was a new man last year and that coming into this year off the back of what he did for Australia and New South Wales, that even back at centre we can probably expect an uptick. He's expected to goal kick. Mitch Moses is going to give up those duties and give them to Zach Lomax. I'm not keen on him at centre, Desi, based on a 79-point average at a new club, new combinations. Guru's real keen on him. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's no secret that like him and Val Holmes are, two of the best centre wings in Supercoach. They've both changed teams, so I think you have to give them both sides. You probably would anyway, even if they hadn't changed teams at that sort of price. Approaching 800K is just too much to pay for a centre wing this early, like to start in the season. I'm in agreement with you. I think it's too much.
Maxy?
Yeah, look, I think probably like a good comparison to think about is like Ruben Garrick and what happened with his move from wing to centre. And we all said the same thing last year. Well, I won't touch him at centre. And then he came out and his the tackles that he made sort of offset the reduction in runs, and his base was still fantastic. So Zach could do that. The other thing I think that we're probably not paying enough credit to is that fact that St George were a really like ordinary team. And Para, look, they finished like third last year, but they still scored a lot of points. So that's more tries, more opportunities to kick for goals. Like, I'm not sure how many points he scored off goals last year. Just say it was 10 per game. Like, that could increase at the Eels, which would potentially present some sort of value. But, geez, you'd be it's a lot of money to spend in around one team. I think he's certainly a guy to aspire towards, not to start with, I reckon.
I'd love to own him at some point. Just the starting price. He has to go nuts, basically, from round 1 to get any value in that. I can't see him getting much more expensive. So the other thing is, yes, he was at the Dragons who attacked weren't fantastic, but everything they did was down the right edge through Ben Hunt. They'd sort of lay on the left and then they'd have this big sweeping backline movements through Ben Hunt that would culminate in inevitably a try to take Lomax on the wing. So, look, he'll get plenty of ball outside Mitch Moses this year, of course, but you've got Dylan Brown on the left as well, we know what he can do. He's going to command a fair bit as well. So, look, I'm not overly interested in him to start the year. Jermaine Hopgood, bit of a forgotten man, I think, this year. 657K, Season ended in round 14 last year with injury. Back in 2023, he averaged 73 points per game. His minutes reduced from 66 to 60 last season. Probably not going to start with him, Desi, but in terms of a Supercoach player, he's everything you want. He offloads, he's got great ball playing, he's got a huge motor, he plays big minutes. I wouldn't knock anyone starting with him.
Yeah, I think he's an absolute gun. 657K. He'll probably average about 65, 70 points. I can't see him going much higher than that. He had a pretty gun opening year, scored lots of tries. To kind of back it up and get that many tries again is going to be tough. He's got the game for it, though. He kind of rebounds off tackles quite a bit. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't think I'll start with him either, but if I was going to start with a 650K second row forward, I think he's the guy that I'd look to.
I think
he's the most consistent.
Yeah, a little bit more expensive, but I'd be nearly more tempted to go him than Dylan Lucas in my side. I just think he's an absolute beast, so won't be starting, but got an eye on him. Maxy?
Yeah, mate, same. Nothing really more to add. Price to 67, he'll do that at least, I think. You know, he's definitely got the potential to be better, and like he's still pretty young. Like he's just really sort of coming into his prime of his career. I guess the thing is with a new coach, we're just not going to know the minutes rotation.
Yeah.
And with so many options at the Eels, I'd rather just have a look first. I don't think he's ever going to get out of reach.
Yeah. Dill Brown, 651K. The more I look through the 5'8", the more I go, I think I did the same last season. I tried different combos and I'll just go, Dylan Brown, he's the most consistent. You won't do any wrong. He had a down season by his standards last year. Averaged 67 points per game. The 2 years prior, averaged 76 and 74 points per game. Rock solid, though. He only had 1 ton in 25 games, but he had 3 scores under 50. Para were a bit of a shambles last year. They had a lot of injuries. Combinations were all over the shop. You know, Brown himself without Moses there. I just think you know what you're going to get from him. If Para do improve, which they should, you'd think this year, there's a bit of upside there. Looking at him and Mitch Moses together last season, in 8 games with Mitchy Moses, he averaged 62.37. Without him last year, it was 68.69. So no sort of major difference there with and without Mitchy. I'm pretty keen on Luke Metcalf in my starting 5'8" role if there's no Tanner Boyd, because it means he'll goal kick. But if there's not, I'm leaning more and more just to starting with Dylan Brown. Desi, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I faded Brown to start last year, I think, for the opening 5 or 6 weeks, and where he wasn't that great in the opening 5 to 6 weeks, and I brought him in, and he started scoring a bit better. It's a tricky one. It's again, he's priced exactly where he should be at 650K. You're not getting any value from it, but you're probably not going to lose much value either.
I would argue though, based on the 2 seasons prior where he did average 70 plus, I think he is undervalued slightly.
Slightly, yeah. I mean, we know that all the halves have potential to go up to 800K at some stage of the season. Whether he's going to do it right off the rip is a different story.
Yeah.
He might though. His ball running is just so bloody good. It's hard to fade him really. I think but if I was going to choose though, I would probably be leaning towards Galvin over Brown nowadays. Yeah,
interesting one. Galvin, he's a freak. He'll play Origin one day and all that, possibly in the next few years. But second year syndrome, we've seen a lot of people had big first seasons, but he's a young bloke. Team's going to work him out a bit. They'll learn how to target him. Jerome Luai coming in is going to take a lot of ball off him. Maxy, what about you for Dylan Brown?
I don't mind him. And I think that the really sort of valuable thing this year for him is that duel. Like, just say, for example, you wanted to start with a combination of Cleary, Hines, Brown, and then we realised after a few weeks that Hines, the Trindle effect is real.
Yeah.
Then bang, sell him, move Dylan Brown up. If you've got Doueihi, you can turn him into a CTW or something like that. But the one thing I think that you've got to keep in mind with him is that he's got an ACL strain, which he did at the end of last year, which is, I won't call it a ticking time bomb because I'm not NRL physio and I don't have the right to make those types of claims, but that's what Sam Walker entered last season with, and we saw what happened to him, at the end of last year. So you just never know when Dylan Brown, if it's going to impact his performance, his running game, which is really where he scores all his points, or when that moment's going to come that strain turns into a tear. So I don't want to touch him. Even though I think the duel's really handy, and that's mostly as well just because I do like some other people at a premium price or at a cheaper price.
Jeez, between Desi and his KP inevitable injury chat, Maxy saying that Brown's going to do his ACL, there's some dark chat going on in today's podcast.
Clip it up. We'll play back at the end of the year and see if we're right.
Pre-season watch. If there is a niggle in that knee and he's not running as much, sweet, avoid him. But if he looks good and he's running the ball as expected, I'm pretty keen. Mitch Moses, 628k. I'm sure he's in career best form. He'll take a lot of confidence out of his rep heroics last season. But if he's not goal kicking, I can't start with him, boys. Would you agree?
No chance.
Good touch.
The one that I am very keen on, Kelma Tuolangi at 433k to start the year. He's priced on an average of 44 points from 51 minutes per game in 2024. In 6 games of 70-plus minutes, though, last year, he averaged 65.67. There's a lot of competition for edge spots. If we believe he's going to be a starting 80-minute edge back rower this year, we'll find out what the roles of Madison are and Sean Lane. He's in my team at the moment, Desi, and I'm keen on him.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yet again, it's a matter of his 430k. If he plays the 80 minutes, he's going to average 60 to 70. It's pretty simple value proposition. But yeah, he definitely hits lines hard. He can score tries. We've seen it. So yeah, there's value there.
The risk is Maxy with all these edge back rowers. If you pick him and he plays 60 minutes, he's probably not budging too much, barring a few attacking stats, and he could become a bit of a mid-range tour of headache as we got last year with a number of them. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You just got to enter a conversation or a selection of Kelma Tuolangi with your eyes up. It could work out really fantastically, or he could just stall. That's why I always like to, if I'm going the mid-range route, which I am in my tour F at the moment, just like to keep a bit of money in the kitty, just so that it just makes those jumps up possible, not just the ones down.
Yeah. Cheapies. Brendan Hands. Maxy, you said he's made his way into your team. 6 games of 80 minutes last season. He averaged 52.2. He's priced on a 36-point average from 55 minutes per game. I took the mickey out of you early on, but if he's the sole starting hooker under Jason Riles, there's clear value to be had there.
100%, and that's it. And I think that anyone who's spent as much time in pre-season looking at their team as probably us three have, starts to realise that there are a bunch of headaches at the hooker and particularly 5/8 position, and he could just solve one. So he's a placeholder for now, but again, if that's what TLT dishes up, then I'll happily jump. Particularly when you think about the other sort of guys around that price, Mamazulis from Souths, Moser from Brisbane. I mean, there's question marks deluxe everywhere.
Sure.
So why not Brendan Hands, I say. 350k, it's a solid price. He's a good little player. And we just don't know what roles he's going to want from his bench. So we'll keep an eye out and then, just be prepared to have a backup plan. I guess the good thing is that he plays round 1. He doesn't play round 0. In fact, I think that looking at the draw, none of those guys who are in the conversation for hooker at the moment play round 0. So we should get a rock solid moment in TLT at 4 o'clock on that Tuesday to figure out what we do at hooker.
Yeah, aside from the obvious one in Danny Levi, but I'll ignore that for now.
Sorry,
mate.
No, he's just locked in.
Yeah, show a bit of
Everyone's
respect to the
team.
great man who did wonderful things for the Cooma Stallions to start last year. He couldn't stop scoring tries.
I think Clem still owns him, actually.
Boys, one of the most popular players in the game, Isaiah Iongi at 232k. Lots of people sitting there looking at the flex position, picking 3 fullbacks, and they're looking at, do they go 3 guns or do they go 2 guns with Isaiah Iongi? NRL debut last year for Penrith, scored 47 points with 31 in base. New South Wales Cup last year, he had 22 games of 80 minutes. He scored 6 tries and assisted 9. Okay, numbers, not great if we're being realistic, but he had 110 tackle breaks at 5 per game, which is a really good stat, I think. At that price, Desi, I just think if he's starting fullback, which we think he will be, he just seems such a good ticket to a fallen fullback gun by sort of round 5, 6, 7, whenever it might be. I'm struggling to not put him in my team.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to fade a fullback at 200k. I'll confess I've never seen him play. I have no idea how good he is, but based on all the reason I can see why most people will be starting him with 220k. I think I probably will. You can just give him 3 games. If he makes cash in 3 games and he looks like worth holding on to, you can. If not, you can always bring in a third gun fullback and downgrade somewhere else. It's a simple one for me.
I'm with you, Maxy.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned 3 games, Desi, because I'll just read you out that draw. So he starts round 1 away at Melbourne Storm. So if he scored 25, 30 points, would anyone be shocked? And yes, we know round 1 drops out the quickest. That's fantastic. Then he's got the Tigers in round 2, who, we know that they're probably going to win the comp this year. So so there's that. And then he's got the Bulldogs, which, the Bulldogs pushing for top 4 this year. Again, probably got one of the best defenses in the competition. So there is first 3 games. And then he's got the Sea Eagles, which are expecting to be, projecting top 8 this year. Dragons, Raiders, Tigers, and the bye. So it does open up a little bit after the Sea Eagles in round 5, but it's going to be weird, I think, to try and get a realistic sample size as to how good he's going to go, how good he's going to score when 2 of his first 3 matches are against potential top 4 sides and like almost definite top 4 defenses as well. So there is that risk that we run out of patience or we're not getting a true indication, or that he just takes a bit longer to make the money that we know he can if he just averages 50. So yeah, I'm a bit on the fence after seeing the draw, but yeah, he's hard to go against, just given that a guy playing 80 minutes at his price, it's the type of thing you do want as a cheapie.
Yeah.
Hey boys, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but massive breaking news: Cam Murray's been cleared for round 1.
Wow.
That has nothing to do. Oh my God.
Do you need a moment,
That has nothing to do.
Nothing to do with the team we're talking about.
Oh my goodness. He's in my team.
Do you need to change your pants, mate? Or
Yeah, I do. Give me 5, boys. He's cleared.
I just got a notification from Daily Telegraph. I've only read the first line, but this is the headline: South Sydney Rabbitohs captain Cameron Murray cleared from round 1.
I'm going to need a moment. I'm picking him. I sat there all year going, like all preseason, I should say, looking at what sort of mid-range Tour-F, sorry, not mid-range, but more expensive Tour-F I wanted to put in my team. And I'm sitting there going, God, if Cam Murray was available, I'd just do it. We got a price there for him, Maxy. He's like early 600K. Of course, the thing is, it was a broken hand. So in terms of fitness, he'd be getting the reps in with the legs. If he can get a trial game in as well, we know Ewan Aitken's out for the start of the season.
Yeah, he's 6'10".
6'10". Oh, boy. Huge.
Changes things.
Yeah. Do we like him or not, fellas?
I'd probably play 40 grand more for Hopgood, to be honest. I think he's probably a bit more consistent, and he's definitely still got the same attacking sort of upside as Cam Murray. I think he's, a bit more solid than Murray's been. Murray's minutes have been a bit up and down as well last year.
I just think, again, like he only scored 2 tries last year, Cam Murray, in his 14 games, a couple of injury-affected games there as well. I'm also just an unabashed #1 supporter, I think, so probably give or take Matty Buxton over there. But I'm very keen on him. Matty, going back to the Knights and the Eels, mate, before we move on, was there anyone you wanted to touch on there or anything?
Oh, not really. I just specifically more on the Knights. Like, I have a sad feeling that they're going to go down this year, and that kind of makes me tread carefully when picking their players. But I think Desi and Maxy as well, you make great points about Dylan Lucas having that dual position. But yeah, I don't know about the Knights there. I just have a really bad feeling about them this year. As for the Eels, who knows? Honestly, seriously, who knows? If Moses gets injured, they could get the spoon. But if he plays, they can make the top 8.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys. I wouldn't pick him in Supercoach, certainly if he's not kicking, which he's not. Pretty sure he said he's given it to Lomax. So, yeah, not much more to add, to be honest.
They're 2 tough teams to get a read on. Let's call it what it is. So a big preseason watch for those 2 clubs. Guys, sound the alarms. Not because Cam Murray's available for round 1, but because there's a possible rate cut alert. I spoke with Paddy from Mortgage Choice SCW, and all the talk across the industry at the moment is that rates are set to come down this year. Get you a bit excited, Maxy? You're a homeowner?
Oh, mate, believe me, anything would help.
Some of the experts are tipping that the first rate cut, it might even come out as early as this month. Whenever that cut does come, I should say, and whatever it means to you, see what you can save by getting in touch with Mortgage Choice SCW. If you're sitting there right now, you're thinking about getting into the housing market, you're down the track, you got no idea what that entails, take the step and make it a reality. Flick the boys a message on Instagram at mortgagechoice_SCW, or give them a buzz on 02 9521 1611. Paddy sent me his team today, actually, this morning. Luke Brooks was in there. He had Lehigh Hopewadi in there. And I'm just like, mate, you're lucky you're good at your profession, because your Supercoach side and your knowledge is in all sorts. But he can deal with that later. Boys, boosting. What are your thoughts? You've had a few years of boost coming into the game now. A great addition. It adds a lot of strategy. Desi, I know you're relatively keen on going hard on them and using them early. For those new to Supercoach, 5 rounds in the season at your own choosing. You get 1 extra trade for that week. It obviously comes out of your total trades for the season. What are your thoughts around the best strategy for boosts?
Yeah, I think in theory it makes sense to use them as early as possible. And, we talked about it a few weeks ago, but getting your total team value up to as much as you can as soon as possible so you can buy the gun players in the rest of your team. So I think, over the opening two months, maybe 8 weeks, I'll probably at least use 4 of them. I'll use 4 and then maybe save 1 for late season or mid-season when the buys hit. But I can see myself even just blasting all 5 in the first 5 weeks if it unravels that way. But it's a lot of it's play it by ear and see how your team's going, how teams are playing, and use it as you go. But yeah, I'm a fan of just using it early, get that team value up, get the best players in.
And that's sort of my next question to go into that, Desi, is I'm a big believer in the boost. It's use it when you need to use a boost. And you sit there and go, I need this third trade because there are 3 cheapies that are about to go bonks and have negative 80 break-evens, or there's a gun who's just gone 120, 120 and he's about to play the Tigers in Melbourne, whatever it might be, and you have to get him into your team, but you go, I need that extra trade. So I don't think that people should use boost for the sake of using. I'm like, wait for that week where you really need them. Are you going into it going, like, in the first 2 months, you're pretty confident you'll use 4 to 5 boosts, or is it similar where you go, wait for the right week?
I'm pretty confident I'll just use them. You're using that word, you need a certain player. That there's no such thing in Supercoach, I don't think. I don't think there's a specific week where you need somebody. It's a long game, and to throw that word around is like, it's more like a luxury, I'd say. For a lot of trades, you say, "Oh, I need to get Ponga into this trade as well."
That's luxury
because he has the Tigers or something like that.
Luxury is a good word to use because I don't think you should be using it as a luxury trade because you've got it there. Like, let's say you've got someone like James Schiller who's got like a negative 30 break even because he scored a couple of tries, but there's a few tough games coming up, and you go, I've got the boost that I'll use it, get a bit of cash. Do you really need him? Is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. As opposed to going, okay, he's locked in the wing, the team are flying, he's got the softest run ever upcoming, the break-even's negative 100 or whatever, which I think it was last year, and you go, I need to get him in there. So that's where I just think, stay flexible with your plans. How do you take it, Maxy?
Oh, no, I think you're both right. For me, I really used them last year as like a way to correct my team. Like, I had so many dud starting picks, shout out Bryden Trindle, that I needed help to get out. I was always taught early days as Supercoach that like sideways trade's bad, and when you can actually do 3, not 2, you have so much more flexibility to move up, to move down, and move things all the way around, especially if you've got the right duels. So for me, I kind of use them like firstly as a corrective tool. Maybe my starting team will be amazing this year, and I can use them as an aggressive attacking tool. Play a bit of roulette or chase some break-evens as well, just to sort of build that early value. But, mate, that will be gone early.
Yeah.
Like if I think that you have been super vocal, Tim, about your tactic of holding one for that round 19, round 20 after the Origin buy, so that you can get ahead of the big run home. And I think that's fantastic. And that's a really good goal to aim for, but it's sort of like the goal of trying to go out with the hottest girl in school. It's all right to just get it's nice to set, but sometimes like the second one's fine. So if I can do that, then that's awesome. But if they're all gone by round 9, as long as I'm using them thoughtfully to bring in guys who are either, fallen guns who are going to be cheaper, like keepers, or cheapies who are going to make me 100 grand plus, then I'll be happy. So, yeah.
For the record, mate, did you ever get the second hottest girl in school or not?
Considering I went to an all-boys school, it was a bit difficult. But, maybe moving on.
Second hottest boy in school. For myself, I think the play is to go relatively aggressive on them early. And since they came in, it was, if your team's a shambles in round 1, firstly, not because players have underperformed, but they probably haven't got the roles you expected. You start 100%. Kelmer and he gets 50 minutes or 40 minutes. Okay, let's just jump off that before it gets bad. Mm-hmm. You can use them in round 2. But the first price changes happen in round 3. So I think round 3 is a fantastic time to use one. if your team starts poorly based on roles, as I said, you like go round 2, go round 3, and then even potentially round 4, because there are plenty of opportunities there. As you said, Maxy, I love saving one until after the major bye period and the origin period. Teams are trying to get their team set for the run home, and you can get on the front foot by having that extra trade. I think that's enormous, and I will not be changing from that. As far as how many I use early, it comes down to those factors of, do I need to use them? Do I want to use them? I'm not just going to do it for the sake of it, but if they're there to do, I think, as you said, Desi, build that cash generation early. It is a pretty long season, but if we can get on the front foot early and say, catch me if you can, I think that's a big opportunity. So I'm happy to use the first 4 before the origin period, potentially in the first 10 or so rounds, but I'll be saving one, barring disaster, for after the major bye period. Anything to add there, boys, or are we good?
No, I would just say, I think one thing that we get caught up on each year with cheapies is usually falling in love with a guy who's got had the try scoring versus the role or like the skill and the capability. And there's heaps of examples of that last year with people chasing Zach Labart, Cowboys, round 1. I think he might have scored 100 with 70 points in tries and stuff like that. But his base was actually less than 20 or something like that. So I think it's really important, if you are going to use a boost to chase these types of cheapies and build a team value, that you're actually getting someone who's genuine and not just chasing that little sugar hit of tries, because that's when you'll look back and think, I've wasted my boost.
Total
I'm doing stuff like that. Yeah, we don't need to talk about
that. Boys, the next team preview, the New Zealand Warriors. In their squad, I have got a few things up for grabs and a few spots up for grabs in this side, but at fullback, Charles Nickel-Cookstad. On the wings, Dallin Watenis-Lesniak and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. In the centres, Rocco Berry and Ali Leotawa. Luke Metcalf and Tamari Martin in the halves. James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett in the front row. Wade Egan at hooker. Edge back row of Kurt Capel and Jackson Ford. Dylan Walker at 13 coming in for Tohu Harris. And then a bench of Schnell, Harris Tavita, Dimitri Vormaga, Murata Niokore and Aaron Clark. As I said, a few spots up for battle. Charles Nickel-Cookstad could potentially play centre. They could put Tane Tall-Picky there. They could put Roger Tuivasa-Sheck there. I don't think it'll happen, but potentially. As I said, the vacant spot of the retired Tohu Harris probably goes to Dylan Walker, but they've got Aaron Clark. So a few things to watch out for. And, of course, the big one, boys, and I think one of the biggest talking points from the Supercoach preseason, it'll shape the 5'8" spot. It's the halves. I've mentioned that I'm pretty keen on Luke Metcalf. Tamari Martin probably partners him, but they've got a bit of an issue around the long kicking game and the big boot to get him out of trouble. And that is something that, they have in Tanner Boyd if they want it, a big boot. I don't think he'll start, but if he does, Tanner Boyd comes in and goal kicks. If Tanner Boyd doesn't start, which I don't think he will, Luke Metcalf will goal kick. So, anyway, we'll get to a few of those players shortly. Their draw. They've got the Raiders in Vegas, the Seagulls at home, the Roosters at home, the Tigers away, a bye, Storm away, Broncos at home. First 5 rounds rating. It's a bit of a tough one with the Vegas trip and then a bye in round 5. I've got about a 5 out of 10. Some decent fixtures there, but probably been a little bit generous. It's actually quite tricky. Boys, let's start at Mitch Barnett. It was a bit of a revelation last year. 661k, Desi, dual front row, 2RF. What are your thoughts? No AFB there.
Yeah. It's whether he can continue last season's form or not. That's the real question. If he does, he's priced fairly well, I'd say. He got up to 800-ish last year, which was kind of outrageous. But yeah, if he keeps running good lines and offloading, and I think he threw about 12 offloads one game last year. If he can do that again, I can see people bringing him in ASAP, but starting with him is always going to be risky. I just don't think he'll probably continue that on. It's hard to back up what he did last year. Yeah,
terrific year last year. Certainly a target for teams, but not one that I'll be starting with. Maxy, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck at 553k. But actually put this down in a bit of a write-up. If he's playing centre, I have no interest because probably nothing changes to last year. If he's playing on the wing, where I think he does, I think he could average like 25 runs a game, score a few extra tries and just go bonkers. I'm genuinely interested. On the off chance he ended up playing fullback, I think he'd be a near must-have at the price because I think he could go nuts. In 3 games on the wing last season, he averaged 72 points per game. He did score in all 3 fixtures there. I know he was outside Sean Johnson for at least 1 or 2 of those games. What are your thoughts?
this is going to break your heart. I'm not a RTS believer like you are. And I think that having only been playing Supercoach for probably last like 4 or 5 years, most of that time when he was playing rugby union, I'm not in love with the guy that used to play, fullback and score big tons and have a huge work rate.
Yeah.
I think he's a good player, but I think he's pretty fairly priced for what he can deliver. So not a huge amount of interest, especially like it's all well and good he might have a few runs and stuff like that and be in more try-scoring opportunities, but the Warriors could struggle this year, given the cattle they've lost, particularly just in the halves, steering them around the pack. So he's a watch, but he's not huge on my list.
Yeah, I will just be keeping a big watch on him in pre-season. Probably one that if he does come out and has 25 to 30 runs a game, which he's capable of from the wing, and more importantly, if the Warriors look good and the try-scoring opportunities there, because I have a few concerns around them too, Maxy. One to pick up sort of round 3 or 4 around that first price rise. Dylan Walker, 484k. Desi, maybe he comes in and plays a bigger minute role with Tohu Harris out, but I'm not entirely convinced that he will. Like, even from that bench role last season, he averaged, what did he average last season? He averaged like 50 to 60 minutes per game. Anyway, is he on your radar at all? So he averaged 50 points last year in 63 minutes per game. I've seen a lot of people keen on him. Not really for me.
No, it just seems like he's going to do about the same. Yeah, he's not the best mid-ranger, put it that way.
Yeah.
There's definitely way better value for that price.
Yeah. One that I am super interested in, lads, Luke Metcalf. 443k. He's been brought up a few times this podcast already. If he starts without Tanner Boyd and he goal kicks, I think he's a genuinely one of the few people in the 5'8 slot that is undervalued to start the season. He averaged 50 points per game last season, but he's priced on a 45-point average. You take out his injury-impacted game, he averaged 58.3 their last season in 6 games. He goal kicked in 3 of those 6 fixtures. In one of those games where he goal kicked, he only had 1 conversion from 2 attempts. So 2023, he averaged 47 points per game without any goal-kicking duties. I think he can average 50 to sort of 60 points per game. Maxy, if he starts and goal kicks, I think he'll be my 5'8".
100%, mine too. I think he'll be one of the first picked, and he should be probably the most picked at 5'8", just given that price and what he's capable of. Tough draw notwithstanding, like he's a good footy player, and he's got a game that's pretty well suited to Supercoach in the sense that he runs a lot. His asset is his pace. The chat that got me most excited was all the talk last season about his want to become like the halfback and the playmaker as well, which if he adds that string to his bow, then what an awesome replacement for Sean Johnson, like a guy who can generally cut people apart with his running game, but also sort of put it on a string. So huge watch. The goal kicking will definitely be the kicker for me, but definitely at that price, there's not many better options.
Desi?
Lock it in, Eddie.
That keen?
Yep.
There you go. That was easy. Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's without risk because I said we'll see what the Warriors throw up, new combinations there, injury history with Metcalf. There could be some lower scores, but I just feel that if he does goal kick, that'll lift his floor a fair bit and make him worthwhile.
Agree.
The other one, just to keep a bit of an eye on there at the Warriors, Tanner Boyd. If he does start, look, he played a lot of 80-minute games last year and goal kicked and didn't score overly well, but he's 329k with that dual halfback 5'8 positioning, and he'll be one to consider. Matty, any thoughts over at the Warriors this season?
Yeah, I hate to be negative, but we're going through teams that I don't think are going to play finals this year. So I'm much in the same boat. I reckon the Warriors are going to drop really badly this year. I know they're getting Fisher Harris, and no doubt he'll be great. But geez, they're losing some people. They're losing Tohu Harris. They're losing SJ, and like they're losing Fanua Blake, who's close to the best front rower in the comp. Close to the best player in the comp. So, yeah, I don't know. The Warriors are tough. I do like if Roger's on the wing, I'm with you, Timmy. He's in my team for sure. He's absolutely wasted at centre, and that's not talking about Supercoach. That's talking about NRL. Yeah. We saw last year. I get why they tried it, but you just got to get him in the game. It's Roger If it's up to me, he's fullback. To be fair, but if he's not going to be fullback and you put Chance there, he's got to be on the wing. So, yep.
Put him on the wing, let him roam, get his hands on the ball. So, massive watch on that one. Boys, at the Canberra Raiders, the final one for the show. They start the season with the Warriors in Vegas, the Broncos at home, Manly away, the Cowboys away, the Sharks at home. I've got them about a 5 out of 10 rating to start the season. And their predicted team, I mean, pre-season planning out's going to have a lot to do with this, and particularly their spine. But I've got KO Weeks at fullback. Albert Hopewade won't play round one due to the impending birth of his child, so they'll probably have Savelio Tamale from the Dragons recruit there on the wing with Xavier Savage. Matt Timoko and Seb Chris in the centres. Ethan Strange and Jamal Fogarty in the halves. Josh Papali'i and Joe Tarpon in the front row. Tommy Starling at 9. Hudson Young and Zach Hosking on the edges. Morgan Smithies at lock. And then a bench of Danny Levi, Corey Horsburgh, Matty Nicholson, Ada Mariota. We'll learn a lot about this side in coming weeks, and potentially as soon as this weekend with the first trial game for the Raiders. Fellas, not sort of overly Supercoach relevant, I don't think, to start the season. And we've spoken at Corey Horsburgh, who is one main one, but just in general, I think we can sort of... Joe Tarpon is 655k. KO Weeks, if he's starting fullback 530k, showed some good promise last year. Zach Hosking's under an injury cloud going into the season, so he's a risky one at 513k. Gun footballer would be excellent if he could just lock down these 80-minute games without any injury concern, but he's, as I said, in doubt for round one. Is there anyone sort of at the Raiders who you're interested in, Desi?
Not really, no. We're looking at some pretty terrible teams here, as Matty said. So. But in saying that, actually, I had more players in the bottom 8 teams in my Supercoach team than from the top 8 teams.
Yeah,
finish or start last year?
Through pretty much the entire season.
You went very hard on the doggies last year early.
I had some...
Which worked out
and Tigers as well. So, so you can get away with having quite a few players from these bottom 8 teams and still go well in Supercoach. I think it's important to take note of that. I don't think I'm going to touch the Raiders at all.
There will be, Maxy, at times in the season where the Raiders will be relevant, and there will be cheapies, and it may be round one. Like if Chevy Stewart gets a start at all, if Owen Paddy comes in and starts getting some decent minutes at hooker, they'll come onto the radar. I just don't think we're going to necessarily get it for round one. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I don't mind Tamale in the sense that he does play round one, and he feels like, every year there's that bottom dollar cheapie CTW who's just one game away from locking in like really good job security, and it could be him. So I think a lot of people will start with him if he's named in round one, which is fair enough. The guy, I think there's probably more to talk about than you're giving credit to, Des. But I feel like the guy that's going to come up a lot in conversation around 5/8, particularly if the Cards don't fall our way with a goal kicking with Doueihi and or Metcalf, is KO Weeks, who's a really interesting study, right? Because you sort of go, most people, your brain goes, well, fullback available in 5/8, like sign me up. Yeah. But the truth is, he's priced at a 51. He split his season really between halfback and fullback last year. And he averaged more at halfback. He averaged 53 at halfback, 47 at fullback. So he didn't really set the world alight. So he's kind of fairly priced. All those stats, they really go out the windows when you see what he looks like in preseason, because he's looking hot. He's looking strong. He's looking jacked. He's put on weight. And it could just be that if he's able to get a little bit more work rate out the back of this team, who are a very unconventional team, you never know how they're going to play or where their runs are going to come from. He could just be a sneaky guy at 5'8" that's a decent pod to start with. Tricky price at 530k, but definitely worse options you can go for, I reckon.
That's it. If he can just settle into that fullback role and make it his own at the Raiders, he's absolutely rapid speed as well. Finds attacking stats all over the place. As you said, with a bit extra size on him, maybe just a few more tackle busts to bump up his floor in games where the attack doesn't come. So one to keep an eye on. But again, we'll learn a lot more about the Raiders as the preseason unfolds. Boys, that might do us, I think, for this episode. We've gone on for a while, so we've had enough. Desi, thank you, mate.
Boys. No
Maxy, thank you, mate.
Absolute pleasure, Tim, mate. Pre-season, it is getting, closer to not being here, isn't it? We're almost at the actual season, so yeah.
Less than a month.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. Enjoying the chat in the WhatsApp. Also, shout out to anyone in the SC Playbook WhatsApp. If you want to join a draft comp for this year and you're not sure who to play with, send me a message, because I'm just helping to organise all of that. So can't wait for my DMs to blow up. And now I've said that on the pod. So
look out. We'll also be organising some SC Playbook leagues in there, as well as the subscribers come in throughout the pre-season. Maybe get a look at some trials first, then we'll get those sorted for round one, some prizes to go with it as well. But for now, that'll do us, guys. Thanks for tuning in.